Hi to anybody who might come across this stream or this video on YouTube. My name is Tasha Simmons, and I am a Florida family lawyer and a Florida Supreme Court certified family law mediator. I usually don't do this. I actually just started making voiceover videos just to assist folk who are representing themselves in family court with paperwork. But I just feel like I've been pulled out of my corner of obscurity here. Is I really wanted to react to this recent video that was posted by Ruslan, one of my favorite YouTubers who I'm subscribed to, who recently had the lead attorney on his show. I didn't realize, I'm familiar with lead attorney, but I didn't know he was a family lawyer. So this discussion was really good, and it's exciting because I eat up Ruslan's content, and I care deeply about the things that he also cares a whole lot about and discusses on his channel. So I gotta give, I would call it 2 cents, but it's a lot more than that. Hopefully, if you are going through, family court and you can't afford a lawyer, I hope my self-help videos are helpful to you. I don't know if I made them all public yet, but they will be later today. They will be after this. So without further ado, I want to get into this video.
I think we would agree that the optimal environment for children is a nuclear family. Would that be a fair assumption on my part?
I mean, all things being just perfect and like Never Never Land, it would be a mother and a father, and then loving grandparents.
So he already.
All right. So yeah, I understand what Ruslan was trying to do, because that really is the bedrock of everything else that he has to say, and I'm sure he knew that going in, which is why he sought to establish that. But it wasn't established. Like, it's not something that they really agreed on. Oh, I'm live. I didn't realize people can see this. Hey, Andre. But it wasn't established, and I think that's why the rest of the conversation was just a wreck. It kind of went to hell eventually, but some really good things were said. Some very useful information was put out in the process. And so, I realize I'm live now. All right, so yeah, let's go. I'm gonna skip past the part where Ruslan is speaking and get to just the video where they are talking to each other.
Biological mother, biological father, and then the extension of that. And this is what we have in our household with my son and my daughter, and aunties and grandmas, and it's a lot of festivities over here, and so I think if we know then that 75% of men ages 15 and up have kids and are going to have kids at some point in their life, I think where the red pill becomes counterintuitive is when we say we believe in a nuclear family, we believe in traditional values, we believe in one man.
I didn't know this about red pill, that they believe in the nuclear family. That is a conversation, the whole red pill manosphere thing, that I haven't really, maybe I've done some commenting, but I really haven't pulled myself into that conversation. It seems like a conversation between men, which is great. A lot of what I've observed over recent years has worried me. But thankfully there's content creators like Ruslan or like Hafiz and what have you, that are contributing to the space in a godly manner and in a positive manner. So
monogamy, or some do, maybe some disagree on that. And then the environment that is created kind of breeds this hostility towards women. Sometimes is accurate, sometimes it's exaggerated and it's selection bias. And it ultimately, with stuff like spinning plates and go run up your notch count and all that stuff, it helps men not to become the type of man that could be a functional, stable, competent priest, provider, protector of their home. Instead, they kind of go out and do all the goofiness we see on the Fresh and Fits.
So again, he uses some really powerful language as far as what a husband and a father should be. But, and I'm not saying this conversation is useless, but you're speaking to someone who hasn't really agreed to your terms. And I feel like before you get to a debate, you have to define the terms and you have to establish some type of consensus, you know, otherwise you're going to have a hot mess conversation like this one. But I absolutely agree that a father is to be and a husband is to be a priest and provider, protector, and all of those things. You know, saying someone's a good father is a simple statement, but you're really talking about several roles. So I don't see where
to reestablish the nuclear family. We should be
they
wanting to
establish
decrease
that.
how many kids are had out of wedlock, and that's across the board, white, black, all types of kids are being born out of wedlock, right? And then so the information is like, how do we give the most accurate, reasonable picture of what healthy, stable families are?
Yeah, I don't think many people at all disagree that nuclear families are good things, or that women necessarily are not, you know, great.
Yeah, it's not enough.
Women.
And this is how
issue
he's able to
It's not
weasel
the
out of
nuclear
it
family.
later.
So I hear you talking about the nuclear family, but I don't think the nuclear family has ever been the problem.
Okay.
It's the environment in which the nuclear family exists.
Which is a novel point. I've actually never heard that before. Again, I haven't really been following this whole thing, but you know, we'll see where it goes.
And that environment in which the nuclear family exists is a legal framework.
So now this is typical red pill. The environment, the legal, it's not wrong. Nuclear family and marriage. It's just the way we do it now is bad, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And to be fair, where we land in his ultimate
commentary.
conclusion as a divorce attorney, family,
right? And it rewards certain people for doing certain things, and it punishes people based on unfair attributes, and it's not a healthy environment. So no.
All right, so I got to jump into that really quick. This notion that the family court system incentivizes bad behavior and encourages certain people to act in certain ways that are not healthy. It's very general, but being that I've been practicing family law for, 14 years and going, I know what he's referring to. And I think he's going to get specific, but I can't say at this point that he's telling any lies. Even if we just get into a conversation about the welfare system, I mean, we can go all the way down the road with that, but they're not exactly discussing that today. But I think that's one of the examples of ways that people are incentivized, that a lot of times women or mothers are incentivized to situate the family, and society sure has a whole heck of a lot of incentives for men to do so as well. But I won't take this from him, what he's saying. So
no one is saying that the nuclear family is bad. Let's say that I was a 35-year-old accountant, mm-hmm. and I have a wife and she's 33, mm-hmm. and we got a couple of kids, decides to divorce me. Mm-hmm. Well, up until very recently, like this year, in Georgia, and this is the way it is across the majority of states in this country, mm-hmm. if she decides to divorce me, then I lose my 2 kids.
So where I got stuck here is, what do you mean by you lose your kids? And I'll let him finish before I respond.
It's the same 2 kids that came out of my, they're half my DNA, mm-hmm. half my chromosomes, but now I don't get to see them half of the time. Mm-hmm. I get to see them, a quarter of the time, or maybe 30% of the time. Mm-hmm. Now, why is it? I'm just a good guy. Mm-hmm. Why is it that I do not get shared custody of my kids? Why is it, I think on Valuetainment, Adam pointed out that 90% of women get primary.
All right, so before we get to that statistic, because that's going to start another level of their conversation, but where do I start? I wouldn't phrase it the way he did, and I don't think it's totally as he says, right? If you're married, just to follow his example, you're living in a nuclear home situation with someone, and then the marriage is over, you separate. Obviously, you're gonna have a split of the time that's being shared. There is a whole period, and this is why I really want to do this video, to sort of fill in a gap that I think they kind of dance around in their conversation, is that there is a whole period of, well, this is what we're going to do until the court decides whether or not they're going to give me what I'm asking for, whether or not they're going to give me what you're asking for, right? And so what I hear him arguing for, which is not a new argument, I they try to pass a statute here in Florida every year, is that it should be assumed that equal custody or 50-50 time sharing, we call it time sharing in Florida, should be the assumption. And I can't say I'm with that, because the case-by-case analysis, when you look at each child or each set of children, things are going to differ from family to family. You can have two great parents, but the work hours do not allow for equal custody. That's a more benign example. You understand? But you're in a situation where someone left. How do we know if we're going to use an automatic trigger that it needs to be 50-50? How do we know it's not a situation where someone had to leave in order to protect the children, in order to protect themselves? You know, so that's not to say that people claim that falsely. I've seen that as well, but just to have something automatic that says equal, I don't know if that works, which I get the whole feeling of, well, that's not fair. That's not fair. I don't think a man's role and a woman's role in creating and raising a child or managing a marriage, I don't think it's the stuff of equality. And I am a marriage proponent. Okay. It's not equal. Okay. Because they're not the same. Right. You have one who is more predisposed toward working consistently because it's not physically possible for them to be disrupted by pregnancy. And so that leads naturally to, hey, okay, I just had the kid. One of us has got to work at least. So I guess I'm going to be the one, at least for the first however many umpteen weeks, is going to be here nursing, weaning, and what, it's an old Bible word, but, you know, basically taking care of the children. It just lends itself to that naturally. And the law is built around those natural things. So is it equal? No. Does that mean it's inequitable? Not necessarily. It doesn't mean it's not fair. Now, I'm not being naive in saying that unfair things don't happen often in family court. It's really wild. It's really wild out there, right? But to say, well, the system is set up this way to favor women, I think it's just set up in large part on just common sense and nature. So I'll let him keep talking. But yeah, this whole thing of I lose my kids. You know, what do you mean by lose your kids? Because here's the thing. When the marriage fell apart and someone had to move out, like everyone lost something at that point. You know, it's kind of just sort of like, hey, this is the reality, deal with it. Everyone lost something at that point, particularly the kids, who the court is going to be focused on. The court will tell you quick, I'm not here about y'all. I'm really not thinking about you. I am going to make my decision as far as time sharing or custody is concerned. I'm going to make it pursuant to what is in the best interest of the child or of the children. So I just think it's a little dramatic to say you're losing your kid, because again, it might only be practical. It might only be feasible for you to see them 30% of the time because you're no longer cohabitating. You're no longer under the same roof. So, you know, things are going to fall out how they fall out. One thing I will say is that I think the law should put husbands in a superior position as far as custody is concerned to that of unwed fathers, because their paternity is already established by the fact that they're married. But that's really the only advantage they get out of it, is that they don't have to go to court to get an order saying that they're the legal father. That's already done because they were married to the mother at the time of the child's birth. But after that, they have to fight and scratch for everything else, just like someone who had a child out of wedlock. And I don't know if that's right. I think that's something I would like to see change. I said a lot there.
Custody of the kids. That is what I'm telling you, Ruslan, is an unfair and a toxic environment.
So the claim by the Red Pill is the laws are unfair because men don't get custody 90% of the time. So then marriage is an unfair business arrangement for men. The issue with that statement is it's
Absolutely. I'm a retired attorney. I practiced 20 years doing family law.
Okay.
And I represented
I'm
both
skipping
sides. In fact,
Ruslan's
I represented everyone.
commentary.
Okay.
Everyone that you can think of in a family that has ties to family law, divorce law.
And so
Same,
do you mind
same.
if I push back a little bit?
No, absolutely.
Okay. So from me kind of digging into this and also being close to single fathers who I've seen repeatedly get 100% of the custody. That's part me being anecdotal, right? But then the flip side of just kind of peeling away at all of the data, from the research I've done, and I could send you all the citations and all the references if you like, it seems that only about 1.5% of all custody cases ever actually make it to a judge. That the vast majority of these cases, approximately 90%, are 91%, and I could pull up the study for you if you like, are done away with before a judge has ever seen it. He's just doing it as a formal technicality. 90% never
80,
go to a court. It's completely dealt with in mediation. The remaining of it, 3.5% is dealt with and a judge signs off on it, and 1.5 actually go before a judge and the judge decides on where the children are placed. At the very least, we have to acknowledge that.
All right, let me mute him. Yeah, I'm not gonna argue with his numbers. I don't think that's a big jump from what I was told when I entered the practice. And family court, they're gonna drive you toward mediation. And the judge is gonna tell you, I don't want to decide this for you. You know each other better than I do, and you know your kids better than I do. After today, I'm not gonna give you guys a second thought. So you all should, get it together, whether you still love each other or not, whether you're still in love or not, and you need to get together and decide what's best for your kids. And a lot of judges will tell you, listen, if you can't come to an agreement and I have to decide it for you, you're not going to like it.
That 80% of custody cases are settled by the parents without any outside assistance. Another 11% are settled with mediation, and another 5.2% of custody cases are decided upon by the parents after a custody evaluation is completed. Only 3.5% of cases are heard by a judge, and 2.2, this just goes down and down. And then basically what they found out is that when the fathers actually escalate the cases to the judge, they actually end up getting more custody, at the very least 50-50, a lot of times more than 50-50.
Chill. Nah. I'm going to straighten that out. Okay. It is rewarding to hang on in a custody case. You're just not always going to see people do it for reasons that they're about to discuss. But I will say that a person, mom or dad, if they're likely to get what they're asking for or something, but to say at least 50-50 if you escalate it, that's misleading. I don't think he's trying to be misleading. And maybe he's just talking about certain numbers in, I don't know, his state. I don't know his sources. He doesn't quote them, but if you decide, I'm going to see this through till trial, we didn't come to an agreement at mediation, but I don't just want to be a weekend dad. I don't want to just see my kids, 2 out of every 14 overnights, then I think you're gonna end up with something. Don't count on it being 50-50, especially in a case, a state like Florida, where we no longer have, these automatic things. Okay, there was a time where if a child was 7 or younger, and I'm talking decades ago, if a child was 7 or younger, then automatically they'll be with mom. Unless something was wrong with mom, some kind of drug problem or abuse issue, something like that. But, that was repealed decades ago. And so right now, what our law says is that there's no presumption either way. And that's one of those things that differs from state to state. There's a lot of areas of family law that's kind of uniform, or most, if not all states are in agreement with. But that's one of those things, as far as those automatic rules regarding paternity and time sharing, that you're going to see different things in different places.
Here's another citation. The same, this is now the Pew Research, also shows that modern fathers are not only more active in their kids' lives than previous generations, but also taking on more of the traditional.
Yeah, I'm not going to replicate his commentary here. That if you want to hear that, you should go to his channel. I'm using this video rather than the other ones because it's the longest one and it captures all of what I wanted to touch on and discuss. But the bottom line, the takeaway from this portion of the video is, you're going to go to mediation whether you want to or not. So try your best to come to an agreement, because at the end of the day, yeah, save yourself time, stress, and money. I can't tell you how disheartening it is for people to just be stuck in family court months and months, whether they're paying an attorney or not. It's this anxiety that sort of hangs over them and then takes over their personality even. And it's a huge disruption to peace. And so you don't want to go to bed every night. You don't want to go to bed every night wondering what's going to happen to my kids, So try to come to an agreement.
And like I said, and no, this is speaking anecdotally, when men actually fight, they get it. I've seen 2 friends of mine.
But yes, to that point, when men fight, they do better. I would say the majority of the time, they do better than if they had not.
Mine personally fight, get 100% custody. There weren't drugs involved. There wasn't alcohol involved. There was nothing like that. Get 100% sole custody.
Pump the brakes. So the lead attorney is about to speak up on this, and I'm with him because I know, at least in Florida, and this is, common, for one parent to get 100% time sharing or full custody, and there's nothing wrong with the other parent, nah, that's not going to happen. Either somebody got served some papers and didn't answer them, or there's some type of wrinkle going on. So Ruslan would have to spill a little more tea about his friends for me to make sense of that.
And so why does it default to the mother? Because usually the mother is the primary care provider. But if you have situations where the man is the primary care provider,
that's it. That's it. And usually I don't even understand what it's common sense. Usually mom ends up providing the primary care. That's just how it ends up happening, just by virtue of how the kid got here. It establishes a norm, and the norm continues that mom is home or home more. Of course, there are households where the parental duties are split and both parents work, and et cetera, et cetera. But even then, if something has to change, it's likely going to be the mom that's going to be the one that's asked to stay home, even though yes, it can happen the other way. But we're talking about this isn't even a cultural norm. This is humanity. And here's the thing: by the time you get to see a judge, what they don't want to do is disrupt what the child is used to already. It's not always necessarily a bias toward mom. It's a bias toward stability. It's a bias toward, or a preference for, maintaining stability, continuity, that sense of normalcy, right? Because this child is already going through a lot with the dissolution of their parents' relationship, whether it's a marriage or otherwise. And so you separated, May 2021, and it wasn't until September 2022 that you actually got in front of a judge. You need to now explain to the judge, why should anything change if the children are thriving the way you've been doing it? And this is something I talk to dads often, and my public speaking engagements have been 90% on fatherhood, and not fatherhood, I wouldn't know about that, but speaking to dads about how to engage the fight, because they want to, but I just don't see, or at least in the past, I did not see what we're seeing today with this galvanization of fathers, particularly those who are representing themselves. I love it. And, I participate from time to time in these social media groups like Facebook, where, they come together, if I'm welcome, as a woman, and just to lend some advice and expertise so that they can navigate their way through the family court system. But, I forgot what I was just talking about when I got to that tangent. But basically, yes, you have to get in front of it. And I think that is the point I was heading to. You got to get in front of it. You understand? You can't do what she wants or acquiesce to what she wants. And they're going to talk about that in a second, for 11 months, 12 months, 19 months. And now you want to go to trial and ask the judge to change everything up when the children are now resettled into their new normal. Just because, well, I think I should have. And I get that. I don't think anyone, I need no one to convince me of the importance of having a father in your life. This is a subject I'm very passionate about as a woman, as a believer, as a daughter. But when you go to court, you have to articulate, and this is what I tell dads. I found my point again. This is what I tell dads when I talk to them. You have to articulate what you're asking the court to do with more than just, well, I believe I should have 50-50 because I'm half the DNA. And I know lead attorney is not saying he goes into court and says that. I'm sure he does it, right? But you have to articulate it in terms of best interest of the child. So you have to be able to tell the judge, well, because junior school starts at such and such a time and I live closer to the school and mom works at night, he should be with me during the school nights, and he could go to mom for the weekends and things like that. But if you just say I want 50-50, 50-50 is a ratio. It's not even a schedule. When you come into court, I can't say this enough, saying I want 50-50, you don't articulate how it's in the child's or children's best interest, you're going to get this face. You're going to get this from the judge. They're going to listen to you. They're going to they're going to perform the ministerial function of listening to you and letting you talk, letting you finish. And then they're going to do, they're going to keep everything as it is. Because you came in talking about you, which isn't like this horrible sin. But again, their duty is to make this determination, to make this decision based on what's on the best interest of the child. So if you can't say it in those terms, then you're not going to have a good day in that court hearing.
The empirical evidence says the opposite. The empirical evidence says that when men escalate, the further they escalate it legally, the more likely they are to get full or at least 50% custody.
Generally,
more likely.
I don't want to tie myself down to the numbers, but generally that is true.
Pause it. Yeah. Pause it. Stop. Give me my flowers.
y'all go to his channel to witness these shenanigans. So that's different from what he said a few moments ago, that you're more likely to get that if you hang on to the end. Yes, that's different from saying that if you get to the end, you will get at least 50-50. And you should not take that away from this.
An expert in it and actually practice it, because you won't understand the not talking about you, but just people in general won't understand what they're looking at. They won't understand why. I think a couple of cases where you said that the men got 100% and the women weren't on drugs or anything, and that is not possible unless the woman signed over the rights.
And so, or some technicality like that.
Oh, well, I mean, Ruslan, if the woman...
I'm saying the times I've seen men escalate it, I'm using anecdotal, my personal story, and then I'm also referencing the data. When I've seen men escalate it, they've gotten 100% of the custody. There's been two close friends, best friends, I've been really messy divorces that walked away with both of their kids because they were the primary care providers and because they fought for their kids.
Because you said the women signed over.
Yeah, at some point. At one point, the judge made the call. What I'm saying is, out of these two situations...
So, yeah, I would need to hear more about these friends to make sense of that.
No, they're very important. They're very important. So I'm glad that you bring them up because they illustrate my point. And this is something that's very counterintuitive. Guys, most divorce attorneys will tell men not to fight for their children.
Why?
Because most men, if they fight for their children, will not get their children.
Again, just like I asked, what does he mean by lose your kids? Now he's saying you won't get them. Well, won't get what? What are you asking for? You know, it's perfectly fine to come into court and ask for the weekends or ask for 30%, 40% time sharing. You know, I get why you would want 50-50, but again, the child doesn't feel the ratios. It could be, you know, 70-30 in your favor. You know, at the end of the day, the child. The child. And so, but back to what he's saying, you know, when he's saying you're not going to get your kids, you know, it's vague, and I really don't, what are you asking for? Because I'm never going to tell someone don't fight for your kids. I may end up communicating that going to trial is not the best strategy for your case. So I get what he's saying. He's just using shorthand. It's late night. They're talking, right? But I'm going to tell you, look, this is what I think a judge is going to do in this case. All right. And you have maybe this much ability to impact that, or this much ability to impact that based on the facts and circumstances of this case. Right. And so it would behoove you probably to just offer this in mediation, agree to that. Or if we're going to fight, this is what you're going to have to do over the next few months until we get to trial in order to protect or increase your chances of getting what you're asking for. But I would say over my years, I've probably represented more dads at this point than moms. I don't share the cynicism. I don't share the pessimism about how dads fare in court when they hang on and when they have the proper support and knowledge.
I just read off the data to him.
Yeah.
The data is,
all right, they're going to get into this thing about 90% and all of that. And I think we've already talked about the numbers enough. But yeah, I can't lie. In the cases where it's been easy for me to have the kids go to dad full time, something was wrong with mom. She either had a drug problem, an abusive boyfriend that was harming the children or threatening to harm them. You know, it's got to be pretty bad. Even though the law has changed, it's important to understand your judge. And they have a saying, good lawyers know the law, great lawyers know the judge. And there are judges with that mommy bias, and there are also judges with daddy bias. Okay, there's a sprinkling of biases on the bench. And so again, there's just to reiterate my point that the days aren't as dark for dads in family court as they used to be. And I don't think they're as dark as what lead attorneys making them out to be.
yeah. Most divorces,
Yeah. All right, let's fast forward to this.
Is the most expensive type of case that a regular person is going to have. And that type of case is the custody battle. Mm-hmm. Those things can get easily 35, 50, 75, 115. Mm-hmm. Now, imagine you're a man and you've got four credit cards, and you come to me and you say, Lee, listen, I make $60,000 a year, but I want to fight for my 2 kids. And you're going to tell me the facts of your case, and you got a little something. You got some arguments. But it's going to be a real battle because the judges are biased against men. And so we're going to have to put up a ton of evidence. What are we going to have to put up? Well, we got to do discovery. That's going to cost you 5, 10, 15,000. We got to take her deposition. Mm-hmm. But then we also need to get the kids some counseling. Mm-hmm. And so you can make $60,000 a year, and I can run up your bill to 80 grand, which you cannot afford. Mm-hmm. So I have to tell you, I have to say, listen,
especially if you go to trial.
But if I had to say whether you're going to win or lose, I don't think it's 50%. Mm-hmm. There are attorneys who will tell you, listen, pay me the 80,000, just put it all on all your credit cards, and I'm really going to try, and we're probably going to win. And what happens when you lose? They're going to look at you and say, well, we tried. We gave it the college try. Mm-hmm. And they're going to take their 80 grand, that 80 grand you paid them, and they're going to fix their house and put their kids through a couple of semesters of college. Mm-hmm. Good attorneys don't do that. Good attorneys do the opposite. Mm-hmm. Good attorneys say, listen.
I agree. The attorney is spot on. I mean, we ain't charging that much down here. Not all of us anyway, to say 80,000. But yeah, to go to trial on a case, you definitely climb it up there. A cheap family case will run you between $7,500 and $15,000.
What's going to happen when I start charging this 80 grand? You get up to 30 grand and you're going to come to me and tell me, you're going to say, Lee, I ain't got no money. What I'm going to do? You know what I'm going to do, Ruslan? I'm going to drop you as a client because I don't work for free.
Because I don't work
So now I've got
for
your 30
free.
grand, but your trial isn't going to come for a year and a half. That means you got to get up another 30 grand. You got to get on another attorney's plan to pay for the case. So we attorneys tell you, listen, do not fight for custody if you cannot afford to do it. And a custody case is
Good advice.
It's one of the most expensive cases that a man will ever have.
So his argument is,
so in my time speaking with people and helping people that are representing themselves or just in conversation, I often use the phrase, those who profit from the problem cannot be depended on to help solve it. And this is my problem right now with the legal profession. I love what I do. God has blessed me, and I believe he has divinely appointed me to be doing this as a living for whatever, seasons of life I'll be doing it. But the gap in information, the help that I see people needing who cannot afford a lawyer, because it's not always going to be our problem, you can't afford us, right? But I do think there are things lawyers can do to make their services accessible. And I'm willing to do those things. I've done those things, and I feel like, God has blessed me for that. Not all lawyers are going to do that, and more power to them. That's no problem. But I just feel like the cost drives so many fathers away before they even go to a lawyer that says, don't fight. They just assume. A lot of what I have encountered is that a lot of fathers are frozen in place before they even pick up the phone to call a lawyer because they're thinking about the cost. And really, these are the costs of a lawyer. These are really not the cost of a divorce. This is really just the cost of the lawyer. If you're representing yourself, in Florida, the filing fee is $450 something. That's really the only fee. Unless, you want to take a court reporter, which I have a video on that, and you should be doing that every time you go to court. But it's lawyer fees.
Yeah. The whole argument is, even though all this legal custody is because.
So good attorneys, we say, listen, instead of doing this whole $75,000 thing, what I can do is try to fight to get the most visitation that I can. And most fathers are like, okay, because I can't afford to enter into an unfair trial, lose, and then turn around and pay child support money with money that I just don't have. The cases that go to court are the strongest cases.
Right.
You're thinking that the cases that go to court are equally strong as the cases that don't, and that's where you're missing.
Point.
The cases that actually get to the trial, those are the cases that the men have the best chances of winning. So you're looking at the cream of the crop and assuming that the cream of the crop is reflective of the base of the pyramid. It's reflective of all the other cases.
No, I'm thinking that the men who really care.
No, I am going to play Ruslan's commentary on this part because I want to respond to it specifically because I was concerned about it. I don't know if it's what he said or how it came out, but
you know what I'm saying? Like a dad that's more present in his kid's life, even if he's going through something as messy as a divorce or a custody case, is just going to fight for his kids differently.
It's speculation that his statistic is wrong.
In his kid's life, even if he's going through something primary care facilitating.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking I'm just thinking of just a different type of dad. You know what I'm saying? Like a dad.
So I don't know if I agree. Listen, it's a good tactic. Be real. It's a really good strategy if you can pull it off to become the primary caregiver, as they say. We don't have that in Florida anymore. It's time sharing percentages. So again, the kid is here, 70% there, 30%, 50-50, whatever. But if you're looking for at least 50-50, or if you're looking for majority time sharing or full custody, then establish that norm. It goes back to the idea of what's the norm that you all have been living in before you even walk into court. Okay, because again, between filing that case after your separation, if you separated, and then actually seeing a judge, this time is going to go by where you're cementing a new normal. So that's the time. But I can't say I agree that, fathers that really care and love their children and are willing to fight for them are necessarily going to seek to become the primary caregiver. No, I don't agree with that. I think that it's more responsible if you're earning well in what you're doing. Why disrupt that? Why disrupt the earnings that you'll be investing into your child in order to be home with them if someone's going to be home with them? I'm not saying don't be home with them, but someone's got to work. Right? And so I think it's completely normal and reasonable for someone that's saying, well, listen, I have a demanding work life and I contribute to my family, and I'm going to protect my ability to do so by continuing to work, which means, unfortunately, that I'm going to see them less than mom sees them because we're no longer all living together. It just seems like he's associating being a primary caregiver with really loving your kids, and I don't think that's a necessary association.
More present in his kid's life, even if he's going through something as messy as a divorce or a custody case, is just going to fight for his kids differently.
It's speculation that his statistic is wrong, but it's also speculation that his statistic is right.
He's not even using a statistic, to be fair.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
He's using his anecdotal experience.
I really understand what he's saying, is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. I really understand.
All right, so they're just sort of capping that point.
Strongest cases and which are the weakest cases?
Right. Well, assuming that the strongest cases, the men are even acting towards wanting custody, 50-50 custody or full custody. That's assuming that in the bottom 90% or the bottom 99% that never see a judge, that there's men there that want it, but you're saying they're getting legal advice saying they don't want it. My buddies who went through this process didn't have attorneys, right? And so I understand what you're saying. I understand that you're saying, hey, the odds are in our favor. The numbers don't look like that. And if we can escalate it to that point of, hey, I'm going to go fight for my kids, it doesn't sound like it's not in the man's favor. You're saying it's a financial thing. I'm saying, is that the only way to fight for your kids? Is you have to pay 100 bands and wipe out your life savings? I'm genuinely asking here.
Yeah, let me just tell you as an attorney, my favorite case. My favorite type of case in divorce cases is when I represent the woman and the man represents himself. Oh my God. Your best case, your anecdotal cases, that's my favorite case. And it's not only my favorite case, it's all attorneys' favorite case. I'm going unopposed. I'm going to crush you.
Y'all be talking yourselves into a hole. I shouldn't laugh. That was probably like the truest thing said in this whole stream.
I'm going to crush you. There's no way you can't deal with AV who's in law school.
We backed up. I thought we were talking about cases where the father opts out of fighting for the kids at all and just gets what he can get. Like that to me is an L.
No, again, I don't think it's an L. Especially if you are keeping in mind what's best for the children and not upending this new sense of normalcy they just got because you meaning you and mom, have already upended their lives and are asking a lot of them to adjust to your decision to no longer be together, whether that decision is justified or not. I think sometimes it's the more loving thing to do to say, okay, well, I'll accept this or accept that. And again, you didn't act early enough. You allowed a new normal that you didn't ultimately want to continue and gel, basically. And there are reasons that men do that. And I wanted to shortly touch on that. A lot of times you just want peace. You might feel like you're being nagged. Why would you? Because sometimes dads file the case. So, why would you file this? You're getting the calls and the text messages. Oh my God, you're trying to take my kids. How could you do this to me? I was good to you. They just want peace. Maybe there's the guilt trip that's warranted. Maybe, you stepped out or, you just couldn't get a handle on your temper and she had to leave. I find that it's rare that the fault for the relationship ending is placed on the woman, whether it's really her fault or not. It just seems like whatever guilt trip she runs, it works on him. So guilt is a huge motivator, whether it's warranted or not. And dad's acquiescing during this period of, gelling, as I'm calling it, that happens before you walk into court. A lot of y'all are still smashing and you don't want to lose access to the box. And so you just do whatever she says. And I've seen a lot of you all, or too many, let me say, I've seen some men sign some really bad agreements, some really bad settlements, because you're not thinking straight because of your access to the box, or you want to protect, you make sure it doesn't get taken away. And then the whole time she was playing you, just so. I really wanted to get to this part of the video. We're almost done. Hopefully we can land on, how one can cheat their way into the title best father ever. Can't wait to get there. Pretty close, just about done. So let's just jump right back in. Oh no, that will not do. Oh dear. Y'all gotta bear with me. I've been through some things. Oh my Cardi B. I'm gonna figure this out. Okay, I think this is where we were before. That'll work.
This, like, if you want to be in your kid's life, you have to actively pursue being in your kid's life.
This is so long. This is so long.
Pause it.
Okay, I think I already talked about this still, so I'm not gonna belabor it.
Explain to me why I'm unreasonable here. Am I being gaslit?
So long. You have no idea how many men's lives have been destroyed financially trying to fight for something that you're not going to get.
Yeah, again, I'm just saying, all I could go off of is the data that I'm finding.
I
thought that's what we was on. How?
Okay. A lot of this is going to turn into a pissing contest, which I'm not interested in.
It's interpreting the data. That's what I'm telling you.
According to the data, men have a better shot if they escalate. So I don't know how.
I'm telling you why.
You're saying
you're saying that you're reading the data, but you don't know the why. You're reading the statistics, Ruslan, but I'm telling you why. Why is it that the majority of men do not go to court for these kids? It's because they're not going to get them. It would be.
Or can I propose an alternative hypothesis?
Yeah.
Or is it that the men don't want their kids? Or is it the men aren't the primary care provider? Or is it the men don't have the emotional capacity to fight for their kids? Or is it because the men have moved on and maybe the man practiced hypergamy, found a younger, hotter wife, and they're ready to start a new family? But I'm saying we can't say that all men always want their kids and always get a bad shot from the court system. It's hard for me to wrap my brain around that.
Yeah, you're misinterpreting the data, and I think.
Did I change the speed? This is going by really fast.
You're misinterpreting that.
Their kids. There are men who don't want to spend time with their kids. There are men who don't want to pay for their kids. There are men who don't want to see their kids. I represent all these men.
True.
Because you want to talk
True.
about, all these men not doing stuff. But it's interesting that you don't talk about the other side. Maybe you don't know. Let me finish.
I just said that on the front end that my buddies took full custody of their kids.
Let me tell you something about the other side, which you don't want to talk about. There are some moms.
Of course.
And I know that because I've represented them. Yes. And so if you have fathers, then guess what you also have? Since fathers are humans, guess what mothers are? Mothers are humans too. So you have why is it that 90% of the women have primary custody when the moms are too? This is what you need to analyze when you're looking at your.
Yeah, but you haven't given us any numbers about how many moms are crappy versus how many dads are not that great. Just because there's just as much of a chance for one parent to be, crappy as the other parent, doesn't mean that there should be a presumption in favor of equal custody or equal time sharing. Again, like I said in the other video, it should be decided on a case-by-case basis.
Numbers, guys, if you don't really practice in the space, you just look at the numbers, you have no idea what you're looking at. You're like, why is it if men and women can be equally good or equally bad? Mm-hmm. You would think that the numbers would be more 50-50, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm. Is it possible that the mother sends their primary care providers already, that the kids are already with the mother more of the time, that they're already under the mother's house, that they're
That's it. That is it. I feel like I'm shouting. Do I have an echo? It's really just a practical reason. There's not a grand let me not say that because I do believe that the kingdom of darkness always fights against what God has established on the earth. And to be someone in the role of a father is to really stand in a place where if you do your job right, you can really bring God glory. And, the enemy hates that. He doesn't want that. And so, yeah, there is a fight against fathers, just like there's a fight against marriages and healthy childhoods and financial responsibility and everything else that would make for a good life that one would want to look at and say, you know what, thank God for that, or God is good, right? So, but yeah, the problem I'm seeing, I don't think is the same problem lead attorney is talking about.
Already under the mother's regimen, right? Most kids up until the age of 10 are closer to their mother, so it would make sense, considering both parents are equally terrible, crappy parents. It would make sense that the mothers would get that situation by default.
This is so ridiculous. No, there are millions and millions
Ruslan,
of great fathers.
100% right.
Millions and millions of great fathers. That's what I said. What I said was, equally speaking, there's bad mothers and there's bad fathers. If it's defaulting, whether the dad doesn't want to fight for custody, whether the dad doesn't want to go to court, whether the dad doesn't have the means to court, if it's defaulting, you could also say, well, the mothers, if we're all going to be honest, we tend to be primarily raised by our mothers up until the age of 5 to 10. In the situations where we're not, we see other scenarios where the dad gets full custody.
I would never ever agree that the disparity in the primary physical custody awards that you see in this nation is because is because of, you're saying that the mothers are the primary caregivers. Not to 90%. That is
What
not. I have no idea. But not enough. I know it's not enough to justify 90%. Do you think that the family court system is fair to men?
I don't know. I don't know. It's not my area of expertise. I'm being honest with you. I don't know.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I'm asking you. I'm also not trying to like be combative. I'm asking you questions.
Again, I'm not saying it's fair to men either.
That I'm reading that is completely opposite of the stuff that I'm hearing in this sort of narrative.
What Ruslan is saying is
unfair. I think
it's not opposite. You're just not understanding what you're listening. That's why I'm trying to explain it to you.
Or maybe the court system, even though it's extremely flawed, which I'm sure we could all agree, is also trying to figure out the optimal and best case scenario for a child and where should they be placed. And usually, tends to be the mother, even though that's probably not always fair.
You guys also have to understand that there's different types of custody.
So I'm gonna mute this and take it off screen. I don't want to confuse anyone. In Florida, again, we don't use the word custody anymore. It's time sharing. And so, yeah, you're gonna have a parent operating as the role that we used to call primary residential parent, where, you know, the kids sleep there most often, you know, all week during school or what have you, you know. But it's we don't call it that anymore. It's time sharing percentages. And so, for what it's worth, maybe not much. As far as legal custody, I think I said in the other video earlier, you know, parental responsibility and decision making. That in Florida automatically gets split between both parents once the parentage is established legally, right? Once dad establishes paternity, because maternity established at birth, then yes, the shared parental responsibility decision making kicks in, unless one of the parents can come forward with proof that they need to have sole decision making authority to protect the children. Let me let them finish. Or let me let them get a little further.
Infidelity does not mean you're a shitty parent. You can cheat on your wife and be the best father ever.
That's an L, bro.
Yeah, definitely a womp womp. Because this is what I don't understand. It's men like this who, to their credit, are very outspoken against parental alienation. And I think the courts need to do a lot more than they're doing now as it regards parental alienation. But they will tell you in a second, and they will they will gather all of these resources, many of which will tell you, or many of which stand or express the belief or express the position that how you treat your co-parent affects your child. If you put your co-parent down, for example, you are damaging your child's self-esteem for the same reason, like he said, you know, that's half of you and half of your co-parent. And so I don't get how you can have that whole mindset established when it comes to fighting against parental alienation. And when I use alienation right now, I'm not just talking about keeping the kids away, but I'm talking about like disparagement, right? Really interfering in the child's bond with the other parent by way of exposing or, you know, forcing the child to be exposed to negative ideas, negative conversations, sort of leaving your co-parent out there without covering for them. Sometimes, you know how parents have to sort of cover for each other, like, Mom, why did it, da, 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 da? Oh, sweetie, you know, he had a thing, or he called me and said he couldn't make it. I'm not saying you have to lie for your co-parent, but there's a way that parents ensure that they protect their child from feeling like they have to develop a negative view of their mom or dad. And you have some parents that just totally step out of the way of that, and then you have parents that go even further to create these negative ideas through inferences, things that they say, you know, things that they do. Maybe they plan a birthday. It gets really devious. They might plan a birthday party and the other parent, and then tell the child that he didn't want to come or she didn't want to come. You know, but right now I'm talking about like when it comes to disparagement. You know, you'll have this. I know it's people from the same community, you know, and they will tell you, listen, how you allow or leave your child to feel about your co-parent affects them, how they grow, how they develop, how they feel about themselves. But you don't understand how cheating on your partner and causing the demise and the breakdown of your family, you don't understand how that's related to your parenting. Because first of all, I'm letting him finish. Yeah, he already said it. He already said the absurd part. So I mean, that's it for me. First of all, who's calling you a good father? You're saying you can still do this and do that and be the best father ever, but according to whom? You can't be the guy sitting at the table. What was it? Was it Fresh Prince or was it Friday? You basically stand up and say, I won. Even though you didn't win. That's cheating. So now if you're cheating, if your children witness the disgrace, the humiliation, and the hurt that comes from the broken trust, whether it was one time with a random stripper, which if you don't cheat on me, she need to be. I'm not saying all strippers got STDs. I'm just saying there's a certain culture I'm familiar with, and I won't even touch that. But I don't like anything random when we're talking about. He used the word random, and that just made my stomach drop. I don't like it. Okay, I'm gonna leave that alone. But yeah, who was crowning you? Who was crowning you? You? That's cheating. You don't. I'm not saying a person can't stand up and say, hey, I'm a good father. I'm not saying that. But if you're talking about the superlative, and I know he's exaggerating a little bit, you know, but if you're talking about really now, hey, you could be the best father ever. I mean, who's testifying to your fatherhood? You can say what you want about yourself, but at the end of the day, who your children become, that will crown you best father ever or not. And that's not to say sometimes children don't depart from the best you tried to do to raise them, but to say, hey, look, I just did this very selfish thing that upended everyone's life, and I'm blaming the person I cheated on that they decided to leave me because the trust is broken instead of taking responsibility for breaking the trust, whatever. But now you're saying you can do that and still be the best father ever. So this is what I think the lead attorney is saying. You could be a philanderer and still have the ability to provide for your kids. You could be a philanderer, cheater, and still have the ability to emotionally connect with your kids and have great conversations with them and coach them through life and give them some types of advice, right? Because there are different facets to parenting. So there's different facets and aspects of fathering, right? But let me tell you what I have seen in my 14 humble little years of practice and in my near 40 years of being a person, okay, and being a daughter, okay, of a man who emotionally was unfaithful to my mother for a large part of my childhood, is those children feel cheated on too. you have detrimented them emotionally, or at the very least, you've left them open to great emotional and psychological detriment. Because when you cheat on someone you had kids with and you're living in that nuclear environment, you're cheating on the family. You didn't just leave their mom, and because you left their mom, now we figure out custody. You left all of them. That's what it is, because that's how the children feel. And if that's how the children feel in their world, that's what it is. You cheated on us. You left us. Does it make sense? No. We're talking about children. How they think, how they feel. You cheated on us. Okay? So, I don't know. It's a ridiculous statement, and it was, it was offered in a really ridiculous way. I don't care to really go further to anything else they talked about in this video. It just seemed like sort of a boys pissing contest. I don't know. At the end of the day, lead attorney doesn't claim to be a Christian, so I don't know why he's grilling anyone else morally, and I don't know why Ruslan decided to submit himself to cross-examination. He should have reminded, like, bro, I didn't understand what are you talking about. So I didn't enjoy that. It was unnecessary. I'm not gonna talk about it further, but that was just my time sharing through an awesome video from an awesome content creator. If you're not following or subscribed to Ruslan or Patreon, definitely on that, because he's out here giving life. So me as a brand newbie here on YouTube, hope to do the same. So have a good night. I'm going to go back and finish my dinner. Thank you for spending time.